Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Chris here from Esports News, Axis Rotation, however the flip you know me on these interwebs. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys a super quick recap of what happened during Week 5 of Stage 1 of the CDL. That, of course, being our last week of online qualifiers before the Stage 1 Major in beautiful Dallas, Texas. Now, for those of you that will be in attendance, I hope you enjoy all of the Call of Duty action. For those of you that are new to the channel, there are quite literally thousands of you. Thank you for everyone who's been watching lately. You guys, I think we have like 25 or 30,000 unique viewers to the channel lately, so a lot of new faces coming through. Appreciate everybody who's been showing love. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. One more housekeeping thing. As you guys can see here, I've officially signed on to the COD Stats team as the head moderator. So yeah, this is a cool announcement. So part of the team with the COD Stats guys, which is where I will be bringing you guys coverage from. And also, quick announcement, if you guys watched the video last week where I went over the COD Stats website, the video is titled Exploring the Best Hidden Website in the Call of Duty Community or something along those lines. Yeah, so we did some play cracked picks. And yeah, your boy is currently #1 on the play cracked leaderboards. You know, I had to get right, had to take the lead here. Yeah, I've only played 8 series and I have, I guess, the most tickets. So I think that means that you got predictions right. So I'm currently ranked #1 at the moment with 8 predictions to my name. I can't see my win percentage, but I do have the most tickets, so I think I won the most. So yeah, that's a cool thing. Just wanted to showcase that your boy is #1, just like I was top 25 in the world for Pick'ems last year. So that was just a cool little thing I wanted to show you guys. And yeah, I'll probably lose that at some point. But while I'm #1, I just wanted it to be staked and claimed. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy all of the coverage here. Hope you guys watch the matches. If you didn't, I have highlights as always on the channel. So if you missed any matches from this weekend, be sure to go and check out highlights from all 8 of the matches that were played. I uploaded, I believe, 35 videos in total last week, including shorts, long form, and highlights. So yeah, a lot of content on the page if you guys are missing any of the action. So now that all the housekeeping stuff is out of the way, let's get into our matches. You guys know I was very excited for the Friday slate. I really liked this Carolina versus Optic Texas series. You know, I thought it had a lot of upset potential because of the way that Craze and Exceed have been playing as of late. Nero has been Nero. I mean, he's always been one of the best players in the world. And yeah, he's just hitting another level. Like Exceed said, he feels like Nero is the best player in this game. And Carolina Royal Ravens are on a 5-game win streak. We'll look at their recent wins in a second, but they beat Optic and LA Thieves this week. So what is there to doubt about this team at this point, right? So without yapping too much, let's get into the actual series overview. Let's see how everything went down. So, new website. We're not using Breaking Point anymore because, you know, hey, I'm partnered with my boys over at COD Stats. So we have shedded that. Anyways, we can see map by map that Shotzi was the standout for Optic Texas. He had a 1.21. Mercules had a 1.07. And then Nero on the other side had a 1.48. Even though Optic got the dub here, Nero was just shooting, honestly, on the Colossus. So not too surprising. You expect Nero to be a great Colossus player, and he is. So look at the map 2. Of course, the king of the leaderboards here was Mr. Hook with a 1.33. 8 and 6 for the Optic side. Mercules had 9 and 8. He got a lot of kills, but consequently they did not even come close to winning this map. Nero and Exceed were the shot callers on the Raven side. Nero dropped 11 and 5. Exceed dropped 8 and 6, and Optic consequently dropped the map. Now looking at the map 3, Scar Overload, this was an absolute blowout for the Royal Raven side. Lurk dropped 39 and 22. He went absolutely nuclear. Craze 28 and 24, Exceed 24 and 21. Now on the Optic side, all red. So looking at the map 4, Den Hardpoint, where the Carolina Royal Ravens soared away like an eagle. They dropped 250 to 133 on Optic's head tops, sending them to their home event with something to think about and a little achy on their head, you know? So Nero was 26 and 16, Lurk was 23 and 18, Exceed was 20 and 16, and then Craze, of course, 20 and 21. But on the other side, the Optic boys, everybody just went negative, so that's how that series went down. Very fun one, but just pretty uncharacteristic from Optic in the maps 3 and 4. couldn't really make it competitive, and that's how the Carolina Royal Ravens were able to decisively run away with that one. Now, speaking of teams that ran away with that one, we have the Paris Gentlemates taking on Toronto Koi. As you guys can see, I thought it would be a 3-2 in favor of Dan, Ghosty, and the crew, and it looked like they took the Mystery Machine and found all the ghosts in the Toronto Koi camp and exposed them. So, let's look at the map 1. This was 250 to 219 in favor of the Toronto Koi boys. Of course, Joe Deceives, who but, right, was a standout with a 1.17, 34 and 29. Kleenex, his duo, was right there with a 1.17. And then, of course, Insight, surprisingly, had a 1.07, so that's pretty solid for him. Ghosty on the other side was the only one to do really decently KD-wise. Everybody did not too bad in terms of like getting their slays. So Ghosty is 30 and 26, only positive player, but I mean 0.8, it's not really that bad. Looking at the Colossus map 2, that was pretty bad. I mean, it was 6-1 in favor of the Gentlemates. Neptune went 6-2, Sib 7-3, Ghosty 6-3, and Envoy 7-5. They just had way more control on the map every round. Like, obviously, right, that reflects in the scoreline. So, Gentlemates just looked way better in this S&D, and that's how they were able to pull it. So, speaking of people pulling it, the Toronto Koi pulled a 3-0 in the Den Overload over the Paris Gentlemates. Gentlemates, like I said last week, I've not been a fan of what I've seen from them in Overload. It's been very lackluster, and they really got to figure that out before Major 1, because their Overload has looked absolutely questionable. Looking at the Koi side, everybody fried. Real had a career game, 1.52, 32 and 21. Joe Deceives, of course, well, I guess Joe Deceives is more his duo than Kleenex. 30 and 21. Insight, 24 and 17. And Kleenex, rare bad game, 18 and 26. Map 4, Colossus HP. This, of course, went the way of the Gentlemates, 250 to 173. Not too surprising. Colossus is a map that Ghosty and Neptune, the two standouts here, always typically do well on. Ghosty dropped 25 and 21, Neptune 32 and 27. Neptune takeover in this map was very, very much the difference maker. He was just all over the map, just applying a lot of pressure. Not getting any time, as you guys can see, but yeah, he's applying a lot of pressure. Sib 31, 32, he applied a lot of pressure as well. 3,800 damage. I mean, he was frying. Envoy also had 3,800 damage, closer to 39 for him and Sib, but who's counting, right? Then on the Toronto Koi side, Joe Deceives, only one to really do super, super well. Well, Kleenex did pretty well too, 31 and 28, and then Joe Deceives was 35 and 28. So those two did pretty well, but, you know, Paris Gentlemates just had more pressure on the map, consequently. And speaking of people who had more pressure on the map, consequently, Paris Gentlemates followed that up with a Game 5 victory where Neptune went 10 and 5, Sib 9 and 6, Envoy 7 and 6, and Ghosty 6 and 6. And the next, on the other side, Real was 8 and 6, and then Kleenex was 7 and 9 for the L. Now, what I'm going to do is pull up Breaking Point just so we can get the match MVPs, because that's something that we don't have here on COD Stats. I'll let Turnt know as like a suggestion. But yeah, the series like MVPs are kind of fun, so I'm going to actually pull up Breaking Point just for the series MVPs, and then for the advanced stats, we'll stay here. So, looking at our next series, we of course had the G2 Minnesota boys proving that the Minnesota Miracle was not the last time that they would unexpectedly topple the Toronto Ultra when all signs pointed to them getting absolutely farmed. So, they got a hot 3-0, but how did they get it done? Well, let's look at who the MVP was. It was Mr. Estriel himself, the man who has been having a lot of struggles as of late for this G2 side. He's the reason why their form has dipped considerably, I would say. Skies, Mamba, and Kremp have consistently been performing quite well in most of their matches, but Estriel has just been kind of a little bit behind. We just weren't really sure when he would regain his footing and become kind of that super aggressive entry kind of player that the G2 Minnesota side clearly loved and retained, right? So yeah, Estriel, I mean, he proved to the world in this series why G2 retained him as their piece to build around, and he went nuclear in this series, right? 1.47 plus 24, 8,000 damage, damage leader, KD leader. I mean, he led everybody in the lobby. I mean, that's why he won the match MVP, right? And then you have Bomba right here with him with a 1.27, 61, and 48. I mean, Estriel had 15 more kills than him. I can't say that he was right there with him. But Mamba did have almost 8,000 damage as well to complement. So you can definitely say that Mamba and Estriel had the most pressure on this map without a doubt. But Estriel was clearly the standout. So now that we've gone over the match MVP It was a very quick 3-0. I mean, Toronto, they did try to fight back in the map 1, but that's really the extent of their competitiveness in this series. As you can see, Estriel was 35 and 24 in the map 1, Mamba 33 and 24, and then on the other side, the only players to go positive were Real and, surprisingly, Insight. So Real had a 1.24, Insight a 1.04, and Joe and Kleenex both had stinkers with 0.7s. So honestly, this series, the difference maker was that Joe Deceives just had a really bad day. If Joe Deceives has a bad day, then Toronto Koi clearly doesn't have much of a fighting chance of beating some of these even lower table teams. Well, Minnesota can't be considered a lower table team. They would have to be considered a mid-pack team. But they shouldn't be losing to a team like G2 Minnesota. Well, G2 has been on the uptick. They beat Faze. I feel like, honestly, after Estriel improved and kind of corrected the course, this team is back to where we thought they were preseason and early season. So, yeah, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained here if you're really the Toronto Koi side. G2's just been on an uptick. So, enough tangential rants. Joe Deceives 7-7, only positive player on the Toronto Koi side. And then on the G2 Minnesota side, obviously everybody did pretty well. Krem 6-6, Mamba 5-5, Sky 7-5, and Estriel, the KD leader, of course, of the lobby with 10-4. He just absolutely stretched out on him, put him on the table, and said admire, as I always like to say. So, looking at the Den overload, I mean, not a lot to take home from it. 2-0 from the Minnesota G2 side. It was kind of a park the bus. This was our first park the bus of the day. Absolutely disgusting. And yeah, we'll get back to that in a minute. So 30 and 23 out of Estriel, Mamba 23 and 19, Kremp 27-23, and Skies 22 and 24 for the dub. Now, let's look at our next matchup. We had Cloud9 New York taking on the Riyadh Falcons. Of course, this went to a Game 5 because Cloud9 always seems to will themselves to a Game 5. Somehow, some way. These guys have lost like 6 Game 5s, but somehow they always get there. So, looking at the series, the match MVP, a rare match MVP for my boy X. Xna got the match MVP with a 1.05 in Hardpoint, 1.17 in S&D, and a 1.32 in our third game mode Overload. So, looking at the box score, we can of course see that Celium had a 1.32, Xna had a 1.13, and then Kiz had a 1.19, as well as Preds 1.12. On the Cloud9 New York side, everybody got tucked to bed good night with a blankie and some warm milk. And yeah, I mean, the only player to really shoot back in this series was Mac, 99 and 100. Mac was honestly on one. He was just like, you know, I'm not losing to AG, but sadly he lost to AG. So, looking at the series, we of course kicked things off with what else but a Colossus hardpoint, the bread and butter of the Riyadh Falcons, also the bread and butter of Cloud9 New York. This is really the hardpoint they like to play the most, and they feel the most comfortable on, just because Afron, Mac, and P1, or like any of the other hills, feels pretty good, right? Like, you like your chances against almost any team in the league. Even though this team is massively underperformed, it doesn't really negate the fact that, looking at the eye test, Mac and Afro, very good players. Now, looking at the scoreboard, we see that there are some very good players on the Riyadh Falcons. Kismet the Bulldog was unleashed, 31 and 18. Exnid, his newfound duo, was 33 and 23 for 1.43, and then Cell King Cobra at 1.35, and Pred had an even KD, 22 kills. So looking at the other side, Mac had a 1.03, but that's pretty much all that there was to write home about for C9 on that side. They lost 250-130, not a lot to say. Now, speaking of where C9 actually regained some momentum in the series, they were able to win a round 11. Honestly, this was a really fun round 11, so I'll be playing it in the background as I usually do. And yeah, I mean, C9 just went crazy here. Of course, you can see Beans 9 and 7, Vivid 11 and 9, Mac 8 and 8, and Afro 4 and 6. And on the other side for the Riyadh Falcons, Celium the King Cobra was the only man trying to stave off this L, but the L came just the same. He had a 1.25, 10 and 8. I mean, Pred and Kismet were 7 and 8, and then Exit was 6 and 8, so nobody did horribly bad. Well, Afro's 4 and 6, that's low impact, 600 damage, but won the map, so who cares? Looking at map 3, Overload Exposure, it was 4-2 in favor of those birds. They took it in decisive fashion, behind 29 and 22 from Exnid, which, if you guys don't watch CDL consistently, Overload typically hovers around the 25-26 kill range at the most. 30 kills is unheard of. Lurks with that 39 is absolutely record-setting, right? So looking at it, Selenium was right there with Exid with a 1.31, 21-16. Pred had a 1.1, 22 and 20. And then on the C9 side, Vivid and Beans were the only players to go positive. Vivid had a 1.19 and Beans went even 23 and 23. Looking at the map for HP on Den, we of course had who else but the Bulldog going absolutely crazy in the loss to the C9 New York side. Honestly, you could probably assume that Kismet turned up against C9 New York because when C9 entered the CDL, he was one of the inaugural players on that roster, right? They picked up the World Championship MYSL team. We all know what happened there, but yeah, I mean, he was obviously a C9 player for a little bit, like a couple weeks. Maybe you want to get back. You know, he did play for New York Subliners for a serious amount of time, so, you know, the old org was his old org, and he probably wanted revenge. So 1.21 obviously for Kiz. On the other side, Mac had a 1.16, another C9 mainstay. He's been there since Subliner days. And then Vivid, his duo from, of course, Omit, had a 1.08. So looking at it, Celium also had a pretty good game, honestly. 1.17, 27 and 23. Pred was 33 and 31, and he had a 1.06. And then Exon had a 0.79. So rare sinker from X. This would have been a 3-1 if you got a better performance from him. But honestly, C9 clutched up and they played for the win, which is really impressive. Looking at the Game 5 Raid Search and Destroy, C9 did not play for the win. They played for, I don't know, just completion. They got 6-1. It was not competitive. Pred was 8-1 with his feet up. Celium 5-1. Exit 8-4. And then Kismet, the Bulldog, 6-4 to send C9 home in embarrassing fashion and end their Major 1 qualifier campaign 1-6. So, in our next matchup, we had the Boston Breach taking on the LA Thieves, and of course, it went to a Game 5. It couldn't have gone any other way between these two teams if you know the lore between them from Major 1 last year, Major 2 last year, where the Boston Breach famously eliminated the LA Thieves on LAN, then you know that this is actually a pretty serious budding rivalry between Scrap, Hydra, and this Boston Breach org, right? So, looking at it, we of course had who else as the match MVP but Abizi. It was too easy for Mr. Abizi on this fine Saturday of CDL action. He had 95 kills, 82 deaths, and a 1.16. He was a standout on his side. And then Hydra, he broke the 100 kill mark. He was 198 with a 1.02. Then Cammy for the Boston Breach was the lone standout with a 1.07. And Snoopy went even with 95 kills, 95 deaths. So, looking at the series, we of course kick things off with a Colossus HP map 1. Jesus, it was a Colossus Saturday, huh? Every series had Colossus map 1. So, the Colossus map 1, this one went down to the wire too. 2 of 3 went really, really well. Nah, Riyadh C9 didn't go back. Yeah, no. Okay, I'm capping. Anyways, 236 to 250. This of course was a great performance from both teams, honestly. Abizi went nuclear 1.19, 32 and 27. Kenny 36 and 34. He had a great game. He started out really slow here, and then he turned it around, which was pretty remarkable. Ended up as the kill leader, even though he started 1-9 or something like that. And then he ended up with the most kills in the map. So Scrap 34 and 34. He went even, and then Hydra slightly negative. So just a good game from both teams. I mean, you can't say that anyone had a really bad performance and was a difference maker on either side. Purge was 34 and 38. Nasty's 30 and 32, Snoopy was 32 and 31, and Cammy was 33 and 31. So honestly, this was just a Bocage Jr. situation, straight bang out. Both teams wanted it, and it went down to the wire. Speaking of both teams wanting it, one team wanted it in the map 2. It was LA Thieves. They took it 6-2. Abizi, First Blood Reaper, of course, 8 and 3, 2.67 KD. One First Blood. Hydra might be the new First Blood Reaper. Excuse me. He had 2, and he was 10 and 5. I'm being facetious, guys. Don't take me seriously. Scrap, of course, had 1 First Blood, 5 and 5, and then Kenny, 5 and 3. So looking at the Boston side, everybody went negative. I mean, it was just a stomping 6-2. Then on the Den Overload, the map 3, we of course had the Boston Breach retaking the lead in this series, going up 2-1 behind a 4-2 win on this Den Overload, like I said a second ago, behind 30 and 20 from Mr. Snoopy himself, 1.5 on the map. Nasty had 27 and 18, Cammy was 27 and 23, and then Purge 17 and 18. And then everybody on the LA Thieves went negative. So yeah, I mean, they just dominated in this Overload. LA Thieves, their Overload has looked very shaky, similar to Gentlemates. So Not sure what it is with, you know, former LA and current LA teams, but they suck at overload. So, looking at people who don't suck at hardpoint, the LA Thieves were able to win 250 to 168 behind who else but the match MVP, the man of the match, Mr. Tyler Abizi himself, with a 1.55, 4,000 damage, 34 kills, 22 deaths. He did it all in this one. And then Kenny had 27-24, Hydra 31-29, Scrap 23 and 25. So everybody from the LA Thieves did their part and contributed to this win. Then on the Boston side, Cammy had a 1.19, 32 and 27, and then Nasty was the only player right there with him with 25 and 25. Purge 20 and 34, you have to think if you get a better game out of him, it's definitely a lot closer, right? Looking at the game 5, Den S&D, speaking of things that could have got closer if people had better games, the LA Thieves took this one 6-1 and closed out the series in dominant fashion. Who else but Mr. Neck, Scrap himself, 9 and 2, 3 First Bloods, untradeable, Kenny 6 and 4, Hydra 6 and 4, Abizi 5 and 6. It was just a dominant map 5 from the LA Thieves. They were firing on all cylinders, momentum swung on their side, and they were just ready to take this series. So, speaking of people who were ready to take this series, the Paris Gentlemates took their series against Miami Heretics quite seriously and quite quickly with a decisive 3-1. Let's check out how they got it done. Didn't mean to rhyme, but here we are. It's not a crime, I guess, right? Just had to finish that off. Alright, so looking at it, we of course had who else but the Dark Prince himself, Dylan Envoy, as the match MVP with the 1.05 in hardpoint, 0.75 in S&D, and then a 1.08 in overload. We only got one S&D, so we're not going to hold that against you. Envoy went nuclear in this series. Jesus Christ, 99 and 96. He had a 1.03. Neptune had a 1.07, but he was 88 and 82. Yeah, Envoy was just on a blinker here. Rencor, of course, as per usual, was on a heater as well. He was a standout for the Miami Heretics ever so slightly. Just 1 kill's difference between him, Trakes, and Super. So he had a 1.11. Super, of course, had a 1.17. The co-rookies of the year went absolutely bonkers. So let's look at the actual maps. Let's look at the play-by-play and break everything down, right? So we had the map 1, Den Hardpoint, going 250 to 240 in the way of the Paris Gentlemates, behind 36 and 30 from who else but, as Stud likes to call him, Mr. McLeod, Neptune, with 36 kills, 30 deaths, and 4,000 damage. Ghosty also had 4,000, and he was 26 and 27. Envoy's 30 and 35, and Sib was 21 and 33. So rough map for Sib, but got the dub. Speaking of people who did not have a rough map, we have the new rookie Trakes, who had 37-29, 1.28 KD, and almost 4,000, well, 3,700 damage. Then you have Rencor dropping almost 5,000 damage. Jesus Christ, 48-29 damage, 1.26 KD, 34 and 27. Wow, you want to talk about a team leader. Looking at map 2, the Exposure S&D, this of course went the way of the Miami Heretics. They absolutely dominated this one. It wasn't even close. Super pulled out that sniper, and he was just bonk, 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 bonk. I mean, just all over the map, just bonking people with that sniper. And yeah, I mean, there are probably some conversations had after that one. So looking at it, of course, Neptune 8 and 6, lone standout here. Ghosty 5 and 6, Sib 3 and 6, and Envoy 6 and 8. And then the Miami side, of course, he had Super going absolutely nuts with that sniper. The boomstick was booming. He had 10 and 5. He had a 2 KD, obviously, right? And then he had 1,300 damage just with the sniper primarily. He pulled out an AR, eventually pulled out an M15, but he primarily had the sniper. He had that recon, and he was reconning, man. So Rencor, his co-rookie of the year duo, was 6 and 5, and then Trakes 6 and 7, Metals 4 and 5. So looking at the map 3, this is where Gentlemates regained control of the series. They took this with a decisive 3-1 on the Exposure Overload. This was a really fun overload, if I'm being honest with you. It was pretty close, to be honest. Miami was like neck and neck, but in terms of objective efficiency, that's just where Gentlemates really shined here, proving me wrong. I said earlier in this video that Gentlemates, their overload is not great. Miami's leaves a lot to be desired as well, but they're not a hopeless overload team. They can definitely get wins, and they're definitely not as consistently dominated as the Paris Gentlemates are in the mode. So, speaking of domination in the mode, Sib, of course, had a great map. He was 26 and 21 with a 1.24 and 3,400 damage. Envoy the Dark Prince had a rebound map as well. He had a 1.08, 26 and 24. And then Ghosty and Neptune went very negative. Both had 0.7s, Ghosty 17 and 22, and Nep 15 and 21. Then on the other side, the Miami Heretics, of course, had Super and Rancor popping off. Of course, that co-rookie of the year duo, like I mentioned a second ago. And then you add in their new rookie, Trakes. He was 23 and 24. I'm sorry, 24 and 23. He had a 1.04. Rancor was 23 and 21. He had a 1.1. And then Super was 20 and 17. He had a 1.18. So very serviceable performances from all of them. And Metals was 21 and 23. So no one really played bad. Honestly, it was just that the Paris Gentlemates were more objectively efficient than the Miami Heretics. And that was the consequential difference. So, speaking of consequential differences, we had a 250 to 166 on Scar Hardpoint going the way of the Paris Gentlemates behind who else but the match MVP, series MVP, the Dark Prince, Envoy, 37 and 29, 1.28, 4,000 damage, 28 seconds in the hill. He was not the hill kit, and that's Dan Ghosty with 115. And then Ghosty also had around 3,600 damage, so he had a really good map. 28 and 24, 1.17, put a lot of pressure on him. And then Neptune, of course, he was in the hill a lot, considering how many kills he got. 29, 25, 1.16, and 3,000 damage. It's probably why his damage is so low. He's playing more objective. Sib, of course, 30 and 31, 3,700 damage in 50 seconds in the hill. And then on the Miami side, everybody went negative except for Super. Hit a 1.21, 34 and 28. Excuse me. And then Rancor was slightly neg. He had 28 and 29, but Metals and Trakes were neg 10, so they just had bad maps, and that was the difference maker in this map 4. So, speaking of difference makers, we of course had the Carolina Royal Ravens coming out and making a massive difference in our standings, going up against LA Thieves, winning a Game 5, Round 11. Sorry to anyone on YouTube who watched the highlights of that. I spoiled it, and someone in the comments was like, hey dude, can you stop spoiling the matches? And I feel bad. So sorry about any spoilers in the titles, guys. I'll be more, like, deciduous about, like, you know, not spoiling the results for you. So sorry about that. Just making the adjustments. So looking at people who made adjustments, the Carolina Royal Ravens were able to take this Game 5 series behind a strong performance from who else as the match MVP but Mr. Nero himself. Emperor for 5 days of this stage, right? 5 and 2. I mean, the Emperor, he's not been getting Etu Brute'd, excuse me. I mean, he's been doing the Etu Brute'ing, man. He's been stabbing everybody else in the CDL in the back when they least expect it with these results. I mean, let's look at the box score. 98 and 85. What Exceed said might be true. He might be the best player in the game, and Exceed might have unlocked his potential, right? Exceed had a 1.09. Craze had a rare bad series, 0.73. And then Lurk had a 0.98, so he did his thing. Then on the LA Thieves side, Hydra 1.02, 88 and 86. Kenny 90 and 86, 1.05. And then Abizi 1.12. Scrap had a pretty uncharacteristic series for his standards, so honestly, I think that was a difference maker. But let's look at the box scores and see what the real difference maker was head to head, right? Looking at the map 1, Blackheart HP. I don't know what it was, but Thieves got absolutely curb stomped on this one. Maybe this is a map that they don't play a lot. Maybe this is a map that Carolina's just extremely good at, but Thieves looked quite hopeless. You can see the team KD diff, 1.36 for Carolina and a 0.7 for the LAT side. Honestly, dude, the fact that the site has the team KDs is actually so sick. So, yeah, just as an aside, that is so sick. Like, I love that. So looking at it, Abizi was 26 and 26. He was even, like I said a second ago. Kenny had a 0.6, 21 32. Hydra 20 and 31, and then Scrap 16 and 29. So everybody got tucked. It's just a bad map for the Thieves. Exceed the Burger King said, yeah, you guys are getting flipped. 1.68, 32 and 19, 4,000 damage, 103 seconds in the hill, ladies and gents. I mean, he did it all. He did it all. He was soaking, he was killing, pause, and he did it all. Then you had Nero, of course, Emperor, 29 and 20, 1.45. We gotta come up with a nickname for Nero. This dude's actually, he's a star now, bro. 3,600 damage, 114 seconds in the hill. I mean, wow. You want to talk about a dude who's really locked in on the win. Looking at Lurk, he, of course, 29 21, 1.38, 3,200 damage, and 69 seconds in the hill. Nice. And then Craze, of course, 27 and 26, 1.04, 3,000 damage, and 66 seconds. So, looking at the raid S&D, this was a pretty close one. It went the way of Carolina as well, so they went up 2-0 in this series, and honestly, they looked to be in phenomenal form, obviously. Looking at the LA Thieves side, we, of course, had Hydra and his new duo, Abizi. getting 7 and 6 and 7 and 7 respectively. Abizi had 1,000 damage, 2 first bloods. Scrap was 6 and 8, and then Kenny was 5 and 8. Scrap had 3 first bloods, which is pretty respectable. And on the other side, Nero was 10 and 4, and Craze was 10 and 8. So yeah, LA Thieves just got absolutely rinsed here. And then you had Lurk 5 and 7 and Exceed 4 and 6. They had their feet up. I mean, what are you gonna do when your two teammates have 20 kills between them by the time you finish the map? Like, you're probably not getting a lot of action. Now, speaking of people who didn't get a lot of action, the Carolina Royal Ravens got absolutely flatlined in this game 3. The Scar Overload, they of course lost it 7-0. This was a Brazil-Germany vibe. Honestly, not a lot to talk about. Hydra 1.71 took them out, put them on the table, said everybody look, have a good look, and you know, enjoy what you can't have. So, Kenny 1.57, 36 and 23. Hydra 36 and 21. Hydra dropped almost 4,000 damage. Kenny dropped 3,600. And then Abizi, of course, 26 and 27, slightly neg, and Scrap 26 and 27 for the dub. Now on the Carolina side, everybody except for Nero was just getting absolutely rinsed. Craze was 18 and 35, Exceed 22 and 28, and Lurk, I mean, he wasn't getting rinsed that bad. He's 28 and 31. He had a pretty solid game. Then Nero just went even with a 30 and 30 KD. So, looking at the map for Den HP, this of course went the way of the Thieves to no one's surprise, right? You figure that if the Thieves are able to regain momentum in the map 3, they probably chain it into a map 4 that they are decidedly very good at. They're a pretty good Den team. They always have been in this Black Ops 7 title. And yeah, I mean, they really just continued their dominance on this Den HP with a 250-116 scoreline. BZ 30 and 15, Scrap 30 and 21, Kenny 17 and 16, and then Hydra at 15 and 18. My take, honestly, was just that Scrap had a slow start to the series. He wasn't really involved in a lot of the plays and everything, and just a slow start for him. Slow, uncharacteristic day. That's really my take on it. Carolina Royal Ravens side, of course, Nero 25 and 21, 1.19, and everybody went negative, so not a lot to say there. Craze was 12 and 27. Christ. Looking at the map 5, Colossus S&D, this was a really fun one. We had the Burger King Exceed flipping these guys like a whopper. 14 and 7 for the dub, bro. 1,600 damage, 2 KD on him. Craze finally turned up here, 1.13. Lurks was right there with those two, 1.11, and the Nero 4 and 10. We're not going to talk about that. But the LA Thieves, we're going to talk about that. Kenny dropped 11 and 7 for the L. Kenny was going crazy. Hydra was 10 and 10. He was going crazy as well as Support Ken. And then Scrap and Abizi, I mean, they did their thing as well. Abizi 6 and 10 and Scrap 7 and 10. It's not like anyone was like getting rinsed on the LA Thieves side. It was just a skill diff from the Carolina Royal Ravens. They went down 5-3 and they brought it back to win 6-5. So, speaking of skill diffs, we had the last matchup of the split being Faze Vegas taking on Vancouver Surge. Tale as old as time. Faze take out the belt, give them vicious lashings, and we go into a major expecting them to do pretty well, right? So looking at it, who else but my GOAT Simp taking them down, 1.23 in hardpoint, 2.17 in S&D, and a 1.67 in overload. I mean, what else can we say, right? I mean, seriously, right? 80 and 52 from the Pimp, 1.54, plus 28, 9,000 damage. Jesus Christ. Abuza, 1.43, plus 20, 8,000 damage. Holy! So, yeah, let's just look at this series rather quickly and be done with it, because there's not a lot to talk about, guys. So looking at it, Abe was the lone standout on the Vancouver side, 1.08, 26-24. Lunars 20-24, TJ 18-25, Gwen 18-25. They got tucked to bed, good night, pillow, warm milk, you know the deeds. I mean, tough scenes, right? And then on the Faze side, Abuza 30 and 20. He has been an absolute hoss in HP. 112 seconds in the hill, and he was the kill leader. This guy might be, I mean, he might be the anti-cell. Fast, getting objective time, moving around the map, getting a lot of kills. Bro, he's the opposite of Cell. Simp, another person who's not the, well, he is the opposite of Cell, because Cell did not win those Cell games. 27 and 22 from Simp, 1.23, 3,200 damage, and then Draza, the CEO, 1.05, and Abuza, 21 and 21 with a 1 KD. Draza was 2019. Looking at the map 2, Of course, the Vancouver Surge went down once again. Lunar 6-6, tried his very best. TJ 8-9. He honestly did pretty well considering how few rounds there were in this game. And Simp went absolutely nuclear on these guys. He was 13-6 with a 2.17 and 1500 damage in S&D in only 9 rounds, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the games that we saw earlier that went deep, like 10 rounds, 11 rounds, no one had 1500 damage. So this guy was just on one. Abuza was 7-5, 04 was 5-5, and Draza was 3-6. When your teammate's dropping 13, it doesn't matter what you do to a large degree, unless you're just Bergen every round and just giving them freebies. But yeah, I mean, Faze firebombed them in the map 2, and that's that. Den, map 3, another firebomb. I mean, what else can be said? 25 and 29 from Tej. That's a standout on their team. Is this your king? You know? 25 and 30 from Gwen, 19-25 from Lunars, and Abe 21 and 30. So just an absolute rinsing. Simp 40 and 24. 40 in Overload is insane, bro. 40 is unreal. That might be a record. That might be the kill record for Overload. I'm not trolling. Typically, the range of kills, like I said before, is about 20 to 25. So 40 is unheard of. Abuza 29-21, Draza 23-22, and then 04 21-23. And that's how we ended the week, guys. So yeah, be sure to check out the COD Stats website. This is honestly the best website in the Call of Duty community. That's why I am partnered with these guys. I think that this is honestly the best resource if you are a person who loves Call of Duty. You have all of the player stats here. Hardpoint. Well, actually, this is just overall KD. You have the hardpoint KDs. You have the S&D KDs. You have the overload KDs. And you can sort everything based on the different metrics, right? So if you want to sort by who has the most kills in the league, who has the most deaths in the league, the average damage output, the overloads per map. You can also dictate based on who's played the most maps and sort that way. Wins, losses, win percentage, and my favorite thing that Turnt has on this website is the player impact ratings. So it takes into account damage, KD, and win percentage, which is absolutely amazing. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out COD Stats. I'll have a link down below in the description. Come join us in the Discord. I'm a moderator over there. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a great morning, noon, or night, like I always say. And I'll catch you guys on the next video, which will be either a team or player ranking. That's TBD, game time decision. And yeah, hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, like I always say. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Once again, this is Chris from Fake Source News, Action Rotation, however the flip you know me on these interwebs. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.